This review covers the Ferrari California. It's a 124 scale kit from Revell, number 4291. Now, the California was a GT sports car produced by Ferrari, and it's a 2+2 hardtop convertible. Now, rumor has it, although it was vehemently denied, that when they found out how much it was going to cost to produce this particular car, they originally called it a Maserati. But after they added up the numbers, they decided to slap some Ferrari labels on it so they could justify the price. Now, back then, when they were made, they only produced 27 cars per day. And throughout its production, there was only 2 with manual transmissions. Now, for the modeler, it's a re-release, a repop. It's been out before in different versions in both the German and American boxings. There's 111 parts molded in white, chrome, clear, and it has nice rubber tires and has been produced with a complete motor. That's a real nice version of the 4.3 liter V8. Its interior is a multi-part assembly, so it details well. And the chassis has a full plate, just like a Ferrari. The instructions are very nicely done, easy to use, and the decal sheet's just like the European version without the tags for them. Now, when you're done, it's about 7.5 inches long, 2 3/4 inches wide, and 2 1/4 inches high. Here are the decals for the kit. The register is pretty good. There's even some silver-colored mirror faces in place here. And there's also some Ferrari decals, which are pretty opaque, but you may have a little trouble with those on very dark surfaces. But they're still in pretty good stead for this particular model. So they come off easily, and they should go into place without even setting solution needed. Construction starts with the engine, and you can put the block halves and the bottom together, add the front and the oil filter, and then paint the whole unit aluminum. Now the valve covers are flat red with some black trim and aluminum ignition parts, and then paint the exhaust steel color. Just a reminder that when you put parts together, make sure that you scrape off any chrome plating or paint, because they just don't seem to stick well unless you do that. That, of course, includes the exhaust pipes, the manifold there, and the valve covers, which you can add at this time. Now we'll gather up these components, the exhaust and the exhaust shield, along with the chassis, and paint the chassis a semi-gloss black and the exhaust parts steel colored. Now use your favorite adhesive and go ahead and install the exhaust into the exhaust shield, and then that unit into the inner part of the chassis, as you see here. Now we'll work with these parts for the front suspension. The wheel well and the upper A-arm mounting backing plates are flat black, and the A-arms are aluminum. The spindles and the tie rod are aluminum as well, and the boots on the tie rod are painted flat black, and the struts are aluminum too. Next, you can attach the struts to the A-arm mounts there and install that into the wheel well, and the tie rod gets added to each spindle, and the spindles are added in place on the chassis. Now attach the wheel well to each side and line up the A-arms and the spindles together. And now we'll install the motor with these pieces and assemble the other parts here. So put the radiator together and paint that flat black and attach it to the chassis. And then paint the cross support flat black as well and add it to the fender wells. Now paint the bottom of the intake aluminum and the top flat red and black for accents there, and add decals 10 and 12 and paint the center aluminum color, and then assemble the intake and add that to the motor. Now we're going to work on the rear suspension. So assemble the gearbox top, bottom, and the back, and then the whole unit's painted aluminum. The wheel well and the upper A-arm mounts, that plate there, that's flat black, and the A-arms are aluminum. Spindles as well. Now the struts and tie rods can be painted aluminum too. Next, you can attach the gearbox and the drive shaft to the chassis and transmission. So assemble this strut, tie rod, and the A-arm backing, plate with just like in the front, and attach the unit to the wheel well, and then add the spindle and install the wheel wells onto the chassis. Next, we'll move on to the interior parts, and I'm going to do some optional stuff, so you can skip those if you don't like that. So the interior parts will get painted. The floor pan is flat black. Assemble the seats and paint them flat tan and flat black for the controls. And then the door panels are flat tan and flat black also with the inserts, and the rear seats are flat tan. Assemble the console and the armrest and paint that flat tan, and the console control panel is flat tan with some silver dials. Now, as you may have seen, in the interior here, with the really nice contrasting colors for the seats and the black flat black inserts, I've also added what's called carpet flocking, and that's where you paint the bottom with either some lightly colored paint for your interior or some white glue, and then you use some carpet flocking to make a carpet. There's also some homemade decals. So I went online and added some Ferrari decals to a piece of flat black cardboard stock. It's real thin, but it works very well as floor mats. And so now you've got yourself a car that looks much more realistic with both floor mats and carpet fibers on the floor. With the carpet flocking and the floor mats in place, you can install the console. So in the console, add the centerpiece and the AC controls, and then add the rear seat bases and backs and the front seats. Finally, attach the door panels into place. Gather up the parts for the interior dashboard and give it a light gray coat of primer and set it aside to dry. Now paint the top of the dashboard black, and then the wheel and the column are black with some silver appointments. The dash is flat tan underneath and black, of course, with silver accents. Then you've got decals 17 through 26, except for 24, that's for another issue, and 20. Now assemble the column, the paddle shifter, and the wheel, add that to the dash, and slide the dash top into place. Now, I've elected to skip ahead here to section 9 in the instructions to work on the wheels. And the tires are both directional and they're smaller in the front. They also are inside and outside, which corresponds to the directional makeup. So make sure you use the proper tires on the proper sides and the proper ends. Paint the brakes silver with red calipers and steel hubs, and then the tires are rolled on a sheet of 220 sandpaper, pressing the tread as you roll it, and this will give it a used and worn look. Now, slide the proper brake into the rear, and then on the inside, and add the front rim, sandwiching the brake in place, and then insert this into the tire the proper way. Next, you'll squeeze the tires and wheels into place on the proper positions, and then you can have make sure that the brake calipers on the brakes are to the rear on both the fronts and the backs, and this completes your rolling chassis. With the chassis finished, we can return to step 7, and then we'll prepare the body. And note that I've collected the mirrors and the vents, and they can be installed onto the body, and the hood can be hinged into place for a good finish. Now let's pay attention to the body, and you'll find that there are some parting lines that need to be removed. You see the red arrows will indicate where those are located, and they are on both each of the fenders and the front bumper. So remove those prior to sanding and painting. And then the easiest way to do that is use some sandpaper and just sand away the lines until the body is smooth. Next, I wet sanded the body and the hood with some fine sandpaper, about 800 grit, and then rinse it clean and dry it thoroughly. Then spray some primer on the inside and outside of the body and the hood. Let the primer cure and wet sand it with some 1000 grit paper, and then rinse and dry once again. Now I decided to use some Gravity Colors paint. It's excellent paint. It's color matched, and it provides for a beautiful finish, but it's airbrush product, okay? And I decided to go ahead and use that. And it's a two-step paint. You have to paint the base coat and then a gloss coats after that. It's just like the real thing. So next we'll paint the base coat, and it's an off-color rose metallic, and then it needs to be applied in light, even coats so that all the parts are matching, including the hood, and let that cure for at least an hour. Then we'll spray the mid coat, which is a transparent red, and this gives the overall car like a candy metallic red look. Again, use even coats and paint all the parts with the same number and conditions, and you want even tones when you're done. Next, it's time to do the detail painting. You can see that there's a semi-gloss in the engine bay, the inner wheel fenders, etc. The headlights nacelles are the same. And so take your time and be careful. Do some hand painting or masking and then spraying carefully. And let that continue to dry until it's fully cured before we start with our decals. The decals are small, and they probably won't need any setting solution, but if you find there's some contours that need to be covered, go ahead and use some setting solution for that, and then let the decals dry thoroughly. Now we'll install the dash and also the windshield inner frame and mirror. Slide the dashboard into place in the interior area in the slots provided. And then the visor is a flat black on the back and then tan on the front side with the mirror black and the face decal installed. Next, you can attach the mirror and install the visor. Now we'll get back to the front end, and you can install the headlights by painting the side marker there black and inserting the lenses using some white glue with the lens cover. And put that in place, and the grille gets painted black and installed as well. Now we'll work with the rear lighting, and it's quite an arrangement here. You've got stop lights as well as turn signals, and also we'll be putting the exhaust into place. A lot of these are chrome plated, and of course they can be detail painted as per the instructions. Now, the tail light bulbs and the blinkers are painted both light red and turn signal yellow on the lower lights, and installed with the lenses in place using some white glue to put those there. Now, you have to paint the exhaust flange around the back side of it black, leaving the pipes chrome, and install those into place too. Remember, you have to scrape off chrome when you glue parts together. I've decided to personalize the car a little bit with a Florida plate. You'll probably recognize this if you're from the great state of Florida, and put that into position on the back deck. It's time to locate the mounting positions for the interior. It fits snugly into place, but you have to make sure that you get it aligned so that it will seat fully. And then I use some epoxy glue to glue it into position. That gives you time for it to be positioned and will create a strong bond. Now things will really start to come together. We're going to turn the body over and then slide the chassis into position by spreading the sides out carefully and then dropping it into place. Wiggle it into position and it'll snap into place. You won't even need any glue for that. Now we can install the windshield, and it drops right into position, and paint the wipers black, and then after they have dried, glue those into place. Now the lower spoiler can also be added to the front of the car, and then use the decals and add the mirror faces onto the side view mirrors. Also, I had decided on another option here. I cut off the holding tabs on the hood hinges so that if I wanted to, I could just display the engine bay without the hood in place on my display shelf. But that's totally optional. These are the parts that I had left over from the build, and the hood hinge plate there, of course. The mirror faces, which I just used some chrome pen for the mirror faces decals instead, you know, and then that means that you're finished with your construction. Well, there you have it. Your model is finished, and the build-up was straightforward with this kit. No real snags. The motor's nicely detailed where it's needed. It looks great. The interior is pretty simple to assemble, and the details are crisp. And one bonus was that the body assembles fully before painting, and it's not even touched during the build until the final assembly. And that's a key feature, so you really want to handle the car as little as possible before you put the finishing touches and the body into place. And this is a great looking kit, and the Gravity Colors paint really sets it off. But if you want one of these, you can buy one of these kits and put it on your shelf, or they're about 125 grand if you want the real thing.
Thanks for joining us at Right On Replicas, where we're proud to bring you the best scale model kit reviews on the planet.
This review is brought to you in part by Ryder's Hobby Shops, where the fun begins. Stop in to one of Ryder's 2 convenient Michigan locations where you'll find a full range of the latest hobby products, supplies, parts, tools, and paint. You'll find aisles and aisles of scale model kits, RC models, model rockets, Warhammer gaming, and railroading products. Stop in at Ryder's today and tell them Doug sent you.